good morning to all. Today I focused on the first module, poetry. Poetry is a poetry is a Greek word of Greek origin. Poetry is a word of Greek origin. The word poetry origin from Greek. It comes from the verb which means to make or to create. Not the point, which means to make or to create. The poet is the creator and the language is the material out of which poet creates his or her work of art. Poetry means a Greek word which means to make or to create. It is the poet who is the creator and the language is the material out of which the poet creates his or her work of art. German poet Goethe observes that poetry is the universal possession of mankind. Poetry is the universal possession of mankind, defined by Goethe. Mankind revealing itself everywhere and all times. Poetry is the universal possession of mankind, revealing itself everywhere and all times. Like any other literary works, poetry is made up of words. We all know that any work of art made up of words. But that is a special. What is special about poetry? How is reading poetry different from reading prose? A good start to answering the question is considered what is poetry concerned with. How poetry differ from other genres of literature? There are two questions. What is special about poetry? How poetry differ from prose? A poem is a self-contained text which makes sense as it stands. That means poetry is self-contained or an end in itself. While reading a poetry, we get meaning from itself. That poem itself, we got the sense. The careful choice and arrangement of words counts for the unique quality of poetry. The careful choice and arrangement of words make the poetry powerful. Structure of poem play a major role in conveying the message to the reader. There are two terms, structure and texture of the poem play a major role in conveying the message to the reader. In addition to the sound quality, a poem makes intense use of language which results in a greater concentration of meaning than it's commonly found in prose. That is, in poetry, the use of language is intense because poetry is the reflection of one's own emotion in the form of expression. Poetry in the form of expression. So, the poet expresses his own feelings intensively in poetry. That is the very specialty of poetry. In structure means study of structure known as syntax. We all know that syntax is the study of structure. Structure in poetry means the structure of poem refers to how it was crafted, how it was made up, cooked up, how poem was cooked up. It includes line length, stanzas and consistency of a poem. It includes line length, stanzas and consistency of a poem means structure of a poem. The study of structure is known as syntax. Okay. In approaching a poem, it would be preferable to ask a text a few simple questions which would help you to understand a poem in a better way. Which are the questions? What is the poem about? Who is the voice speaking in the poem? Who is the speaker of the poem? Who is the poem address? Whom the poem address? What are the figures of speech used in the poem? The structure of the poem, tone and mood of the poem, setting and context of the poem. All these questions we ask to a poem, we will get the meaning of the poem. In short, poetry is the reflection of one's own emotions, and poetry make use of rhythm. The rhythm differentiate poetry from other genres of literature. We all know that. Next term is what is structure. Structure means the concrete physical elements of prose or poetry that are separated from the structure or argument of work. That means the concrete physical element of prose or poetry that are separated from the structure or argument of work, which includes metaphor, imagery, meter, and rhyme. I forgot to type this. That includes metaphor, imagery, meter, rhyme, etc. You people please add these things to. Structure includes metaphor, imagery, meter, and rhyme. Structure means the concrete or physical element of prose or poetry that are separated from the structure or argument of a work. Structure is different from structure. Structure means physical element of prose. Structure means how it crafted. Okay, that is structure and structure of poetry. Today's class I concentrate on what is poetry and the basic information about poetry. That is the first module of your textbook. Okay, let us wind up. Thank you.